and gentlemen, thank you all for joining us tonight. We are back with another episode. Appreciate you guys from the X app, formerly known as Twitter. Shout out to you guys on YouTube and each and the other platform that you guys are following us on. Continue to follow us if you're not. What are you waiting on? It's free. Just hit the button. We appreciate all of your support moving forward. And shout out to all the supporters on the Blue Stable website as well. I'm your host, Culture Shock, but I could not be here alone. Tonight, I got two guests with me. Two. The favor of two tonight. This is awesome. I'm excited. I know you guys are excited. But first, I got my road dog with me. I got my guy Landon with me. Landon, how we doing tonight?
Yeah, doing good, man. Just getting through the week. It was a tough week. I know. I just want to touch on it real quick because I haven't said anything on Twitter or anything. But a few days ago, my sister-in-law lost her battle with cancer. So it's been a pretty tough week. But we're doing good. We're making it through it. I know she would like us to do, me to do the show and still have fun and continue on with daily life and all that. So that's just where my thoughts are. So if everybody could just keep your thoughts with my family as we go through this, and more specifically my brother-in-law and my nephew and all them, they got a tough road ahead of them. But other than that though, OTAs are here. We're getting closer to football, getting closer to actually seeing some action, and I'm ready, man. I'm super excited.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mentioned it earlier when I was talking to you yesterday. But prayers out to you again. We love you, man. I got your back no matter what. Road dog for life, for sure. But shout out to everyone in the chat as well, sending out your prayers and love. We appreciate that for sure. Thousands of millions. But tonight we are not alone. Landon, we have finally got him on the show. My guy, Colts Film Room. Colts Film Analyst been blowing up on social media. I was just chatting with Andrew and the guys over there with the Horseshoe Huddle. Appreciate them. I was in there live before we went live. They definitely referenced you and they shouted us out as well before we went live as well. So appreciate Andrew and those guys over there. But Colts Room is here tonight to join us for the show. First time on the show. How are we doing tonight?
Man, I'm excited. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'm fired up for this conversation. I think it's gonna be good.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be real good. We know how good you and Landon is in that film room, so I'm elated. I mentioned to Landon what I feel like. I feel like I'm around the horn. I'm just like a moderator when it comes to you two talking football. You guys both in the film and know your stuff, so I'm honored to be in the room with you two. But I mean, lo and behold, let's get the show on the road. Let's get it going. But I appreciate you guys for joining me tonight. Let's go ahead and hop into it. So tonight's topic of discussion is for sure is the players that need to step up the most to take the biggest leap next season. And of course, you guys know me. You know my Steeler. You know how I go when it comes to Colts football. I am very biased when it comes to these opinions because I just feel like the Colts are probably the best team in the AFC South. Now, of course, this might not be normal for a normal Colts fan. It's like, oh, we got a lot of steps to take, which is completely honest. But there's a few players that can pretty much push us to that upper echelon of the AFC South division that could potentially give us to win that crown. Last year we was one game short. Next year we might be actually to take it to the next notch. And there's a few players that can change that scenery. So let's go ahead and hop into the topic of discussions. We're going to give two offense and two defense. And first, we're going to start with our special guest coach from Field Room tonight. Give us one player on the offensive side that you think can take the biggest leap next season.
So I promised myself as a special guest that I was not going to name Anthony Richardson. That's the obvious answer, and that's the correct one. This team will go as far as he will take them, but that's boring and lame, so I'm not going to choose that one. I went with Trey Sermon. If Jonathan Taylor was to suffer an injury tomorrow, he's the de facto running back one, a guy that probably didn't get the shot that he may have wanted in San Francisco when he was drafted from Ohio State. It didn't really work out there. And he, signed to the Colts practice squad after the Evan Hall injury in week 1, quickly was elevated, played 14 games in Indianapolis last year, but they were really limited reps. It was a lot of, third and longs, second and longs, garbage time, dead drives. There wasn't a lot of meaningful reps until the Pittsburgh Steelers game when JT had the thumb injury and then Zach Moss, I believe, went out with a forearm on that touchdown play. And then it was really him and Tyler Goodson. They kind of put Shane Steichen's words into fruition of we're going to pass to score and run to win. And there were some really impressive reps. He's a really good gap scheme runner. I don't think he's necessarily a guy that's going to hit the home run, but he's got really good contact balance, and he can get skinny to get some of those dirty yards when things start getting muddy in between, the A gaps. So I'd love to see him take this opportunity that he has in Indianapolis and run with it.
Amen. I love it. I love it. I love it. Landon, you can get your thoughts on that on that first, and then you can get your play after that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. He's a guy that, like you said, I personally agree. He's got really fantastic contact balance. He's a guy that is just, he's going to hit his hole. He's going to hit it hard. And he's one of those guys, like, they always reference guys that just fall forward and they gain an extra yard or two. He's very much like that, where there might only be 1 yard there. He's going to get you 3. He's going to get you 4. And that's really needed behind JT in this running back room, because it's looking a little thin. And if you got a guy that can come in there, spell him for a few, still kind of turn in those short yardage, goal line, plays like that, and convert first downs, because that's going to be really the next part of this offense, taking the next step, is converting on third downs, keeping the chains moving. And we know, my next player is obviously going to be the most crucial part of that, because I'm going to be lame and boring. I'm not going to take I'm not going to go deep in the bag here, because it is, it's just obvious, and it's so important. It's just so important. This team will go as far as Anthony Richardson takes them. And that's just the truth of it. Is he's the guy that needs to take the biggest step. And mainly that really just means staying on the field. Because I think you saw it in limited reps. When he's in the game, he affects so many different things, even plays that necessarily don't involve him. Just the threat of him being there is going to matter. And guys like Trey Sermon can benefit from that. Obviously, guys like Jonathan Taylor, they're going to benefit from that. The offensive line, they're going to benefit from that. Even when they're wrong, he can make them right. His biggest, thing now for him to take the next step into being the franchise guy is just staying on the field. And my point of view is, maybe last year they were so close, and it is a little bit bittersweet, but it might have honestly been a blessing in disguise for him, because now he's got a chance to know the verbiage, to be in that room, to know where the reads go. And of course, it's always different when, you got live bullets flying at you and you're actually getting those reps in game, but to have a little bit more of a game plan, to have everything slowed down, he knows where the facility is. He knows where just little things like that people don't really think about whenever, rookies come in, and they've got so much thrown at them, not just from the aspect of football, but just life in general. And now it seems like, he's made a life now in Indianapolis. Things are going well. He can slowly focus on football. And if he can take that step, man, and he can become the franchise quarterback, he can stay healthy, for the majority of the season, hopefully all of the season, I think the sky's the limit for the kid. And you already know how much I've loved him, for a few years now. And I'm super excited about it. So yeah, that's the easy answer. It's the boring answer, but it's also the right answer in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely is. And let me ask you guys this, because this is kind of something I was actually surprised about. I think Anthony Richardson's actually gotten a lot of national buzz, which I'm a little surprised about, to be honest with you. Just because we really didn't see much of him at all. And really, I think people who didn't watch all of Anthony Richardson's season and really are covering all 32 teams, they really start to point to Anthony Richardson, and maybe a lot of the hype is warranted. Maybe some of it is a little unwarranted too, just from the amount of reps. I personally think that, week 1 rolls around and it's fair to not expect Anthony Richardson to come and be what CJ Stroud maybe was. I don't think that's fair to him. But I think a lot of the hype is not really coming from Anthony Richardson, and obviously his athletic ability and what he showed in the second half of that Rams game was super important, but a lot of it's coming from Shane Steichen. Like, some of the stuff that he did as a play caller, and especially helping Gardner Minshew essentially get a bona fide,
starter contract. Yeah.
Quarterback job as a guy who and this is I thought Gardner Minshew came in and played really good football. I thought he got kind of criticized in points that he maybe shouldn't have when that offense was struggling, but Shane Steichen did wonders with him. It's only what he can do for Anthony Richardson. So I think that's where a lot of the hype is coming from. But I think I would just tell people just to pump the brakes a little bit. I think it might take until week 2, week 3, week 4, knock on wood, he stays on the field, for things to start to click. Because a guy who had 80 some odd pass attempts and only started 13 games in college, that's just not enough reps to really see some of the exotic blitzes and different, even the stuff that Jacksonville was trying to do with the scrape exchanges and the stuff to stop the quarterback run game. That was kind of new for him. It didn't necessarily work, but it was new for him.
Yeah. Well, I think too, a lot of the people leading the charge is really the fantasy community. You're seeing a lot of fantasy analysts and all that kind of lead the charge too, which if you look at his per game, per snap points scored and all that jazz for the fantasy talk. I mean, was quarterback one, by a pretty good margin up there with Josh Allen. So I think a lot of hype he's getting is just from that fantasy perspective. But I agree. I don't think really what you're looking for early on is his passing numbers to be got. You're not going to come in and start dropping 300, 400 yard, games, but it's really more of I think his legs provide the floor to keep him afloat as the season moves on. And those passing attempt numbers go up. He gets a little more comfortable in the pocket. Because you might be I wouldn't even say week 2 or week 3 or anything like that. I think you might be looking towards mid-season before you really see him fully comfortable as a passer. As things move on, and he'll continue to grow in that area. But just the threat of him, what he opens up for the running backs, what he opens up for everybody in that scheme, and the use of his legs, I think can really keep this offense afloat while he's still continuing to get those passing reps.
Yeah, for sure.
Amen. I agree with you guys 100%. And the passion I had for Anthony Richardson before he got hurt last year was just amazing. I think he's shown me enough of the potential and the upside that he can bring in a full season last year that he can do going into this season. And I think, us putting him as having the biggest leap is, it's not really our fault. It's kind of the Colts putting the pressure on him. Of course, they drafted him to be the franchise quarterback and everything, but even Ballard's comments and the pressure and everything were showing we trust this guy to take us to the next level. So they're going to put the pressure on him. And I think he knows that, and I think he's comfortable with that as well. And that just makes me excited for the season as well. It's just knowing how poised he is and how locked in and focused he wants to be and mentally prepared he is to take this next step to lead this team to the next level. And the fact that he has those abilities, and then you have a mastermind, a QB coach like Shane Steichen, it's just, the beauty, the guilty pleasure that Colts fans need to have to go to into this season. And I think he's definitely a Colts player that could take the leap. It is boring, but it is completely honest as well at the end of the day. So, I mean, I love that pick as well to choose Anthony Richardson. I was going to choose him as well. It is boring, but, I mean, it's kind of something that everybody throws out there because it's the hot topic. So everybody's going to have that opinion for sure as well. But there's nothing wrong with that. But the Trey Sermon, I'm a Trey Sermon groupie. Look, I love Trey Sermon. His game was just amazing last year. When he stepped in, he was aggressive, bull cow, just strong and aggressive every run. It's whenever he got the football, you felt like he was going to go maybe 40 or 50 yards, but he was just that good. His passion for the game and his excitement to just be out there on the field is something you want. And, losing Zach Moss and bringing him back just to pair with Jonathan Taylor is a great backup running back, and I feel like he can be a really good piece moving forward. And, I'll just hope Shane Steichen continues to use him like he did last year. Of course, we got Jonathan Taylor, but don't forget about Sermon, man. I'm pretty sure he's going to have a package out there to put him on the field and get some yards going. Let's go ahead and hop into the second person for the offensive side. This time we're going to start with Landon. Landon, let's pick your poison. Who is the second offensive player that needs to take a leap next season?
Well, I think this one's also, it's going to be a popular pick. Like I said, I mean, I'm not trying to, throw any rocket science out here or anything, but it's Alec Pierce. And really, I think with the A.D. Mitchell pick, I think everybody's kind of just written him off. But I think early on specifically, but just really this season in general, I think he's going to play a lot larger of a role than what people are expecting. I think they're just expecting A.D. Mitchell to come in and just take that spot and that's it. Like you see Alec Pierce running go routes, and like that's it. But I don't really think that's the case. I think it's going to be a lot more of maybe like a 50-50, 60-40 split between those two guys, unless one of them just absolutely pops off in camp and, just runs away with it. But Alec Pierce, I think, is a guy that, he plays such a specific role, and the role itself isn't really like indicative of the box score unless he scores a touchdown and stuff. So people look at the box score and don't really think he's doing his job. But even when he's not making a catch, he has the ability to make an impact out there, just from the ability to clear the side of the field and to provide better reads for Richardson and lanes for running backs and free up some of the other wide receivers as well. But I think where he needs to take that next step is in that short yardage, that intermediate area of the field, because right now he's much more of like a build up, slow pace where he starts and like once he gets going, he's going. But it takes him a while to build up, where Mitchell is just more like right off the jump, like boom, he'll hit you real quick. For Pierce to be effective, he's going to have to continue to work on those routes, work on finding ways to get open in the short area, create yards after catch opportunities, because it is going to be such a big role for this offense to have that. And that's something we haven't really seen from him right now. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know what these guys are being coached on. We're not in the room with them. It's easy to sit here and, screenshots and watch, all this stuff, but we don't really know what he's being told to do. But I think just the utilization of him in general in that intermediate, because Michael Pittman is more of like the chain mover, the intermediate guy, the guys that's going to go get you first downs. Josh Downs in the middle of the field. Alec Pierce has just been that deep threat. But I think for this offense to really take the next step, they're going to need both A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce together to combine to have more yards after catch opportunities there. I think he's got he's got strong hands. I think the drops are like really overblown with him. Everybody says like, oh, Alec Pierce drops the ball all the time. Like, I don't really think that's the case. And normally his targets are like so difficult to come down with. Like, it's so hard to hit deep balls in this league because of, how great these cornerbacks are. And the coverages are just, when they're rotating now to like these too high and they're trying to take away the deep ball and all this, it just opens up so much more underneath. And so for Alec Pierce, I just need to see it. Like I've got to see it. You're going in now. I believe this is this year 3 or 4? I'm not sure.
3.
I believe this is 3.
Yeah, this is year 3. So normally you hear those wide receivers, like the wide receivers take the year 3 leap, kind of like how quarterbacks do. And so now I'm curious, and judging really from some of the off-season workout stuff, which I'm not really like big into getting hype about off-season workouts and all this, but he does look like a little bit more explosive in his route running. He does look a little bit smoother and stuff like that. So working with a guy like Reggie Wayne, I figured that would always be the case. So I'm really curious to see how it actually looks on the field when he's actually playing. So he's somebody I'll be watching real close in preseason, watching close in training camp, and seeing, if the combo of him plus A.D. Mitchell now, who I actually am a pretty big fan of, can really take this offense and that wide receiver room to like the next level.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts here. I wrote a film room actually on Alec Pierce, one of my first ones that I did a couple months ago.
Really good too. If you haven't read it, everybody go check that out.
And I thought I did a good job, or really I tried to, is explain both sides of the coin, because there's a role in Alec Pierce in the NFL. Like, if we're going to look back 2 years from now and say, like, was it with the Indianapolis Colts? I don't know. That kind of depends on A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce, but I would not write him off in the slightest. First of all, he is going to be on the field on rundowns just for the fact that he can block. If you had to really knock something from Adonai Mitchell's game, I wouldn't say that blocking was something that he took passion in. There were a lot of, whether it was outside screens, runs that bounced outside, there were a lot of blown blocks. The good wide receivers in this league, you're not paying to block, but if you're not going to be one of those upper echelon guys, you got to be able to block, and he's going to see the field just for his ability to do that. So I'm not writing Alec Pierce off. And then you also keep in mind that he knows the system already, and like that shouldn't be overblown either. you have to be extremely cerebral as a wide receiver to come in, especially in this system where there's a lot of decision routes, whether it's versus this coverage, we're going to adjust it. A 7-step slant becomes a 5-step slant. And there's a lot of different nuances that I think Adonai Mitchell absolutely can handle, but Alec Pierce might just see the field just because he has the experience doing it. I think that there's the anatomy of the deep ball is so, I think you did a really good job. It's hard to complete those balls in this league. One, the pass protection just has to be good enough. Two, you have to have the proper play call to beat the coverage. And then three, you have to have the quarterback that has the confidence to do that. And I think it was a little bit overblown when everyone said, well, Gardner Minshew doesn't have the arm. Well, I thought in Tennessee he showed he has the arm. There were some quarters beaters and some big posts. I mean, he launched it. It's more, those are low percentage balls. And what's like, why take them when you have a quarterback that maybe that's not the best club in his bag? So like for Gardner Minshew, he can work that intermediate area, make those RPO reads. So let's do that as opposed to, you know, we have this wide receiver that can go complete, turns a low percentage ball into like a medium percentage ball. Let's start calling more of those. And I think a lot of people think that like with Anthony Richardson, these deep balls are now just going to be like
magically be open. And
yes. And like, listen, Anthony Richardson can absolutely throw the ball, and the Colts really weren't explosive without him in the lineup. I totally agree with you. However, like throwing some of these shot plays, I mean, you go look at Steichen's call sheet. There's probably what, 4 on a sheet, 4 max. He's not calling those.
And you know this as well as I do. Anytime, like, no matter what the down is, if the coverage is there and the offense decides to throw a shot play, the defensive coordinator is doing cartwheels. He's so happy that like if you want to try to throw these low percentage, you know, plays up against this all game, knock yourself out because you might give one and we'll get burnt and we'll live with it. Majority of the time, they're not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's where I kind of wrote about in that article is like there's a role for that. Absolutely, being a guy that can block and can be that one trick pony doesn't sound, you know what I mean? Like has that one club in his bag, but like to be a guy that's going to win, you have to be able to get off press coverage in this league. You have to be able to find the soft spots in zone. You have to be able to adjust on the fly when the coverage changes from pre-snap to post-snap. And like there were some reps that it just wasn't there. And like I think that Alec Pierce definitely has a lot of potential. I'm not writing him off in the slightest, nor should any Colts fan, just even if they did draft A.D. Mitchell. I'm just saying that I definitely agree. That's a guy that definitely needs to take a leap for himself too, because there's so much more to his game than that even you saw in Cincinnati, where like it almost just gotten totally taken out of the game for these just jump ball play above the rim passes. But I think he can be more than that. And I think he showed at Cincinnati he can be more than that. So I'm looking forward to definitely seeing what he can be in 2024.
Amen. I agree. Alec Pierce is definitely a guy I love. You know, of course, contested catches guru. You need a jump ball scenario. He's there. He can grab it. Has a high catch radius. And I think, you know, I think he's one of these guys that's going to definitely take a leap next season just due to the fact that Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor is starting the season off together. Last year, we had to take a setback. You know, Jonathan Taylor with his contract dispute, and then Anthony Richardson getting hurt, put everything on the back burner. So now going into this season, you have a running back duo. You have a running back and Jonathan Taylor coming back. Then you have Anthony Richardson, who is a dual threat as well. I think it opens up the floor for these wide receivers, especially a guy like Alec Pierce, who can probably find a more success rate because of a dominant run game. Is going to open up the field for him. So I do think he can take a big leap next season, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring. Of course, you know, Ballard mentioned how important it is to get Alec Pierce more involved and get more packages involved for him to be more successful. So I do look forward to seeing what they're going to do with him. Of course, a guy like Shane Steichen, who should be in the Coach of the Year conversation every year just to how good he is, I think he's going to have something for him moving forward. So I do look forward to seeing how he's going to be used next season, and I do think he's going to have a good year as well. So now we got to get to the interesting part, right? The defensive side of the field. Of course, this is the side that the Colts fans just absolutely hate. They're livid with this, but just due to the defensive coordinator.
Well, I think we have one more offensive guy to go.
Oh, I do technically have to do my.
Oh yeah, actually.
Yeah. He's got to get his offensive player on the board.
Yes. We have one more before we get into.
No, you're excited to talk defense, Marcus.
Oh yeah, you know we love defense around here, man. You know that's what wins championships. But we got one more offensive player. I got two ahead of myself. So let's go ahead, Coach Film Room. Bring up your guy. I almost forgot, but this is an important person too. Go ahead and mention him.
Yeah, I went with Will Fries. The way the interior offensive line market is moving, he has a chance to be. He put together a great year last year with one more good one going into a contract year. By the way, he has a chance to absolutely cash in. So if there's for himself, obviously that's going to benefit the Colts, but for himself too, I think that's a guy that definitely needs to either repeat what he did in 2023 or ideally excel to become not just a guy that's a solid starting guard, but a guy that can be one of the better guards in the league. And I think that not only does that really complete the offensive line, where you never really have to worry about Quentin Nelson or Ryan Kelly. I feel like most years they are at the top of their game. Really being able to have three guys in the interior that you really trust. And I think in my film room about Will Fries, by the way, I kind of talked about how interior pass protection is becoming a premium because you have the DeForest Buckners, the Quinnen Williams, the Jeffrey Simmons, these disruptive three techs there's only going to be more and more of them. And they're guys that can absolutely wreck the game because if the quarterback has nowhere to step up with, the rep's over. So I'd love to see Will Fries continue to bounce back from what, maybe 2022, which was pretty rough for everyone, and continue to build on it for 2024. Now, do I think, is it a guarantee? And I tweeted this out today. Like, do I think it's a guarantee that Will Fries with an amazing year is going to get re-signed? I don't know that because I think it's going to be tough to re-sign both Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, which I think is part of the reason that Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonzalez are in Indianapolis right now.
Yeah, and then you also have, I think Braden Smith's got 2025 as the end of his deal. Got Bernard Ryman coming up, who's going to be very handsomely paid if he continues his growth and his pattern of improvement as well. So, yeah, offensive line is a premium, and if you can get guys on cheap deals that perform, very well, you just want to keep stocking the cupboard, which is kind of what Chris Ballard did this offseason, and continue to have those guys on cheap contracts. And he's shown that he is willing to let guys that do play well on the offensive line walk to a different team, and he'll just continue to keep that covered stock. I'll admit, I was worried about Will Fries last year. Going into the season, he was one of my weak links, and he pleasantly surprised. I was super excited to see his growth and how he came on, and I thought he had some really good, really good film when you boil it all down. His play strength and his anchor is what really improved, and being in the weight room, continuing to grow into your body because he is still kind of a young guy.
He played tackle at Penn State, by the way.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a natural guard either.
Yeah, which is funny because Braden Smith was more of like a natural guard and he kicked out the tackle. So,
yeah,
position flexibility there. But yeah, I just think as he continues to grow into his body and his strength and stuff like that, it's only going to improve because really, that's kind of like the big talking point of like Tanner Bortolini is you see the athleticism, but like he gets bulldozed over quite often and stuff like that. But you can add strength to guys. Once you get into the league, get them on a program, all that. We've seen it numerous times. But what you can't teach is guys like that with the ability to pull and get to the second level as quick as he can, and really, the hand placement and stuff like that. I just think if he continues his growth, like you said, it should be a good year for him. I'm looking forward. I'm glad I was wrong last year for sure. And yeah, the interior offensive line. I mean, it is probably the single most important aspect of quarterback play. I know everybody talks about tackles and stuff like that, but you can have great tackles and have really poor interior line play, and it's not going to matter. As we've seen, with number 12, with Anthony Costanzo and those guys out there on the edge, and whenever that interior is just constantly getting beat up, it just makes life so much harder on the offense, and really, really a lot harder on your quarterback too. I know I would not want to have pressure up the middle, so that is a great one.
And it's just kind of a shift in the NFL. And I wanted to make sure I talked about the the offensive line, because there's nothing more important than the offensive line. It's not something that
it's the engine.
And it's not like that's someone who's involved. Like everyone laughs at Jim Harbaugh when he's like, we view offensive linemen as weapons, but like I think it's legitimately the case, because like they're the driver on every play. I mean, part of the tweets that I had kind of about Jonathan Taylor in this offense is the data will tell you, and so will the film if you really look closely. The run game is a product of the holes at the offensive line. The running back will do the rest. Once those 6-7 yards of the lane is created, now it's on the running back in the second and third level to make a guy miss and then take one to the house. But most of the time, it's still 10 on 11. So if you can get, or with Anthony Richardson, it's 11 on 11. So so you can get, when you get those lanes open, then it becomes of the running back. So offensive line play is super important. And it's really a shift in now going from the 3-4s where it used to be like, I think to like those really good Ravens and Steelers teams with like Hello Hinata and all this. They had these big guys that you wouldn't necessarily, that could clog the run, but they didn't have like DeForest Buckner makes it that you need a guard that can pass protect, because they're going to bring interior pressure. Like it's going to happen. And if your quarterback cannot step up, I don't care that there's an elite. I don't care that there's Latu. Without DeForest Buckner, they're going to make it work together.
Yeah. It has really been interesting too, like you said, to see the shift in these defensive tackle contracts. Now these guys are getting paid massive money. I mean, this is like upper tier pass rusher money.
Like look what Chris Jones made.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Yeah,
that's what they are. They are upper tier pass rushers now. Like the days of the 340-pound nose tackle run stuffing, they're gone. They're dead. If you cannot rush the passer from an interior position, it's tough to get on the field in 2024.
Exactly.
It is definitely. Hey man, we love Will Fries. We couldn't get French fries, unfortunately. That debut was going to be great back in the day when that started. It was just the greatest nickname of all time. But one side of the nickname just couldn't pan out to what we wanted. But it's okay. At the end of the day, we still got one. But now, since I tried to interrupt you guys last time, and I didn't let Field Room get off his offensive player, I apologize. But now we can transition over safely to the defensive topics of the day. Like I said, Colts fans talk about defense until the cows come home. Every day you can see is a defensive topic. Even with the OTAs, the clips that come out, they'll talk about, the DB's getting cooked again. I was like, it's just OTAs. Nobody's going 100 miles per hour, guys. You guys got to relax. But it's just the best part of the offseason is just seeing everyone overreact to the clips. I love it, each offense and defensively. But let's talk about the defensive side. Players that need to step up. This is very important because the AFC South is no slouch. This might be the best division in football. No biased opinion. You look at wide receiver rooms, offenses, and general offensive lines. You name it. Like all these teams have good potential to be really good next season. So the Colts got to step up, and especially on the defensive side. If we look at defense last year and the year before, it's been a roller coaster and it's not really consistent. But I feel like next year there's a few players that can take a leap, that can get this defense to take that next notch. I'm gonna let Coach Film Room go first on the first defensive player you think that can take a leap next season.
Yeah, so I thought the most important one was Kwity Paye. I had really thought that it was a no-brainer that they were going to pick up his fifth-year option, which a lot of people did disagree with. But I thought, the fifth-year option really allows you to do one thing and serve two different purposes, if that makes sense, where you're basically paying to delay the long contract. And for a lot of times, it's the Justin Jeffersons, Jamar Chases, the no-brainer first-round pick that we just aren't ready to start talking extension. Let's let the market take shape. These deals take a long time. Here's an extra year. And then there's guys like Kwity Paye, who's done enough, in my opinion, in the run game to deserve some sort of contract, but not enough that the Colts are ready to necessarily shell him out the 4-year deal that he wants. He hasn't done enough, I think, as a rusher to do that. And I think with time, hopefully, they're paying for that extra year of control in a semi-cheap deal where then they can, hopefully he develops, and then they can feel more comfortable about giving the contract out. So I think it's really big just for the fifth year option portion that Kwity Paye takes that leap into becoming not just a guy that we're going to see in the Gus Bradley defense. He's typically going to line up to the tight end side, play a big role in the run game, and he's great at that. He's excellent. But I think when you get into like the third down sets, it's like, man, I'm not sure that like now with Latu in the picture, I'm not sure that he's going to get maybe all the opportunities that he wants just because the room is so deep. Like it might be Samson Ebukam and Latu out there just because they're both effective rushers, and Kwity might fall through that pack. So I think he's got to really prevent himself from falling into the pack where he's just another guy in this extremely deep room that can play the run really well, to a guy that is you're going to feel real great lining him up next to DeForest Buckner, Dio, and then Latu on pass rush downs.
Yeah, and really like that fifth year option, like it's always better to be a year early instead of a year late, because say, for example, like you were saying, they don't pick up the fifth year contract, which I know a lot of Colts fans didn't want. They were like, oh, we shouldn't pay him, 13 point, whatever $1 million.
If he balls
they
out,
don't do that.
But if he balls out this year,
exactly,
contract goes all the way up. So that's how they're paying for that 1 year of control, and then they can do the extension.
Exactly, and it gives them a chance. If they don't have that fifth year option, Kwity Paye goes out this year and has 11 sacks. That's going to be really hard to re-sign that guy to a decent deal, where now you have him under control for another year and another chance to prove, like, was that a fluke? Did he really go out there and get those sacks? Let's see it again before we start handing out big money. So, yeah, I completely agree. And then, like you said, just from the aspect now of, we know what a great run defender he is. I mean, like elite level, like elite top 10 in the league level run defender. But now, can you take that next step, convert those pressures into sacks, and then just get really consistent pressures? Because he does have some games where you see it flash, and I mean, he's just flying around and all that. And then you'll go 2 or 3 games, and it's you don't hear his name called. And so now it's just more about getting the consistency under control. And I think that's really what the last couple of years has been about, because you've seen the flashes, but you just have to have consistency along that line. And I think now it's going to be even harder, like you said, because that room is so deep and you just have so many options. We didn't even bring up Tyquan Lewis as well, who actually, I believe, replaced him at the end of the year, in a lot of packages, those pass rushing packages. Tyquan Lewis actually took his place to pair with Samson Ebukam and Dio and Buckner and all that stuff. So he's a guy that has a lot to prove, going into this year. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can take that leap now with such a deep room, because the opportunities are going to be limited. But if he can come through and get consistent pressure, and really, that's really the name of the game, honestly. I mean, it's not even really, sack numbers look cool, and they do end up getting, overblown as far as like when paychecks come and Pro Bowl votes and all that. That's what you're looking at. But man, just the pressures is what really matters. Like if you can get consistent pressure on a quarterback, that's the name of the game. And just speeding them up half a second, 1 second, it makes such a big difference in the NFL. And he has all the physical tools, but we just haven't seen the consistency, for him to do it. So I think for this defensive line to take that leap of being, I think it has potential to be the best defensive line room in the league. I think it has that kind of talent. And for them to actually see that come to fruition in real life, I think he's going to have to play a big role in that.
Yeah, 100%. I think the other thing I just want to, on the other side of the coin, that I really want to give credit is because for all of his faults, one of the things that Chris Ballard does is he's always thinking 3 years ahead. And the reason this fifth year option was such a no-brainer to me is because look at the free agents that you have to sign this year. There's just zero chance that you would be able to sign Kwity Paye, Dio, EJ Speed, Will Fries, and Ryan Kelly all in the same year. It's just not happening. Like, it was already kind of took up a lot of the Colts cap to sign all the free agents that they brought back last year. So like to do it again is going to be really tough. So the fifth year option, the other thing that it does is it just gives you another year. So you don't have to sign Dio and Kwity in the same year. And it just gives you a little bit more flexibility when you're thinking not just next year, but 3 years, especially when we get to what could potentially be a monster contract at Anthony Richardson if all goes to plan.
Hey man, monster contracts is the name of the game, especially if you're a franchise quarterback with a lot of ability.
And that's
I'm
what you
looking
hope.
forward to it.
That's what you.
That's what you
hope.
exactly. I'm
Yeah, you
wishful
want.
thinking.
Yeah, like I want to see the number 5 next to Anthony. I want to see it start with 5 because that means something really great has happened. So you want to be able to pay your quarterback that kind of money, and this is a big part of that.
Hey man, I agree 100%. Shout out to Nomadic Brian. He said, "Quitty, yes, progression, but perhaps not at the pace Colts want." Hey man, it is what it is. I got faith in Quitty. Like I love Quitty. I love all my players. Like I said, I am biased, but I do see the potential in each and every one of them. So there's highlights and lowlights. I mentioned to Landon last year. Like last year was like an evaluation period. Of course, the Colts could have made the playoffs and things like that, but we weren't at full strength. So most of these games that were winnable that we lost is like, okay, what could they have done different to improve? And that's how I see Quiddy Pay. It's like Quiddy, he shows the potential of what he can bring. And then when you bring back all the pieces fully healthy at complete 100% strength, I think that's where you're going to really unlock Quiddy Pay's potential, especially you guys just mentioned the 5th player option. He knows what's on the line here. He knows what's at stake. So I'm pretty sure he's going to up that game up to that next level. And then with years of experience becomes continuity and then experience as well mentally. So I think he's going to know year in and year out, how to improve himself and become a better player.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to discount too, because it's something we didn't really touch on either. But the hiring of the new defensive line coach as well, I think is going to play a big role in that. This is a guy that he's developed some of the best pass rushers in college football, and he's actually been a huge name that people have been trying to get their hands on to the NFL for like a few years now, and he just honored his commitment to Pitt and wouldn't move, but the Colts ended up landing him, and like I think that's going to play a big role in this defensive line's future, because the way that I've heard from people that he's able to teach and to kind of like break things down and to just make it so much easier for people to understand now, because really the Colts had more of like an attacking front where they're you're just going and then you're stopping the run on the way to the quarterback, and I don't really see much of a difference there. I still think they're going to play that more of an attacking front, but I just think the way that he's able to teach and just some of the development he's had, I think he was brought in. I think Quiddy Pay was specifically probably one of the guys they had in mind whenever they brought Charlie Partridge in for that development.
For sure. And it's really important in this scheme. And I'm sure this will segue, because I'm sure there are going to be guys on the back end that we're also going to have for the answer. But having that defensive line is really the core of what Indianapolis is trying to do.
Amen. Ooh, I can't wait for the season to start. I don't know about y'all, man, but we got to talk about one more defensive player each. We're going to have Landon go his second guy now. Landon, floor is yours.
Yeah, maybe you didn't know Quiddy Pay was also my guy. So
yes,
that was an obvious one, I bet.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that I went with the low hanging fruit per se with Anthony Richardson, Quiddy Pay. I plucked the low hanging fruit.
Good. I wasn't gonna say him because that felt lame, but I got to talk about him, so that's.
Hey, I mean, it's
love everybody's opinion on this.
And there's a reason why they are such a common topic whenever we talk about this, is because they do play such a critical role, and their growth will be so critical to push this team to that next level into making the playoffs and hopefully making a deep run. And there's another guy I'm just going to pick off that low hanging fruit tree here. It's going to be Juju Brents. That's going to be my guy, and it's almost kind of a very similar vein to Anthony Richardson, where he's a guy that dealt with injury. We didn't get to see a ton of what he can do. And whenever you're playing DB, which in my opinion is the second hardest position in football outside of quarterback, is defensive back, cornerback, because these guys, I mean, it's just people don't understand how good these wide receivers are, and they know where they're going. They know what spots they need to get to, and they're all running, I don't think people truly understand. Like, even if a guy runs like a 4.5 or a 4.6, people get enamored with like 4.2s and 4.3s, and for good reason. But these guys are running so fast, and if you make one tiny misstep as a defensive back, you're getting burnt. Like, and you see it every week. It happens every week. That's the name of the game. But for Juju Brents, I think, missing OTAs last year, missing training camp last year, and then kind of getting baptism by fire, about midway through the year when he came back. That's really what it was. And he had to kind of grow up really quick. And I thought you could really see the potential, especially in like the run game and the way he hits and all that. But I think you're really going to have to see him take that next step into coverage in this scheme. And I really hope Gus Bradley kind of does what he did last year, where they kind of mixed it up a little bit there mid-season, and they started changing coverages and stuff like that. I really hope they start playing closer to the line a little bit and jamming these guys, because I think Juju Brents, with like his length and his, the arm length and his ability to get leverage on guys, like that's going to play such a crucial role for him. And he doesn't necessarily have that elite deep speed to where if he gets burnt, you're going to just make up ground. So I think it's going to be really crucial for him early on to be in the right position, to get his hands on guys early, to disrupt those routes so that he can make plays on the ball. Because I think once he's in the vicinity, that length and the athleticism that he has as far as his explosion, not necessarily like 40 time or, running, but, his explosion to make plays on the ball is going to be such a crucial aspect for him, as a DB with his profile. And, we just need to see it. So I think this offseason, actually getting a full offseason of work is going to be so big for him. And they didn't really make any moves in that DB room yet. They brought Julian Blackman back, but they're fully on the team run it back train right now, especially at cornerback. And if this team is going to take that next step in this AFC South, where Marcus said you have some really, really strong wide receiver rooms now to worry about, this DB room is going to have, they're just going to have to play at least a average to above average. If you can just get average play out of the DB room, you're in a really good spot with how good this defensive line is. So for me, it's Juju Brents. Hopefully, he can stay healthy and take that next leap.
Yeah, so I would probably make the argument that there's nobody the Colts are betting on more than this secondary.
Yeah.
We want to point out, I think this is a really complete roster outside of the secondary. And it's not to say that the guys in the secondary aren't good. They're just very unproven. I thought I really agree with Chris Ballard when you saw that, like, Jalen Jones went through an absolute gauntlet last year. He had to cover. That's life of corner in the league. But like, he went from covering like Mike Evans to Jamar Chase to Devontae Adams like in 3 weeks. Like, that's just what it was. And Chris Ballard gets up there at his end of the season press conference. It was like, I thought Jalen Jones really competed and battled. And like, he did. Like, he started to get confident and wasn't playing like a 7th rounder as much anymore. Like, especially as that season progressed. And with Juju Brents, he's got to take the leap of just being healthy. Like, there's really I'd probably say he probably came back earlier than maybe he should have, and it was tough at times. He had some good reps definitely down the stretch. I think there were some in the Oakland game. Obviously, Devontae Adams is going to get his, but like there were some times that like he competed there. The Houston game probably wasn't any of the secondary's best, but also they had their dime linebacker Ronnie Harrison as their full-time safety. So like, there's only so much that I can say there. The other thing that I would say in terms of like where Gus Bradley has been in terms of doing some things that he hasn't, which is like play a little bit more quarters, play a little bit more quarter half. Like, it honestly, I think, got to the point where he's like, this team just isn't effective running cover 3. We need to mix things up. Like, we need to start changing it up. And I think that can almost be, in theory, that sounds like a great idea, but sometimes it's hard where like you look at it like a jar, right? And this is what I've had DB coaches tell me. It's like, you look at it like a jar, and you're going to be really expensive in cover 3. And then like, oh, we might run cover 2 like twice a game. And then you start going into the jar to start pulling out quarters in cover 2 when you're really expensive in cover 3. And it's hard because the DBs haven't had the same reps in it. So like, that's why I thought down the season, he had mixed it up. I'm not sure that there was like immediate success. I think Houston would probably tell you there from that game, you could probably watch the film and say, no, there wasn't.
You're just trying to find something that works.
Exactly. That's really and this is the league, so like it's not exclusive to the Colts, but like they probably change corners and safeties every single week. There was not anything to hang their hat on from a personnel perspective or really a scheme perspective, especially towards the end of the year. I mean, they had Juju back, but then Kenny went out, so then you had Chris Lamons in at nickel, and then you had Julian Blackman out, so then Nick Cross had to play safety, and then Ronnie Harrison had to move from safety to dime linebacker back to so there was so much shuffling around that like this group just has to stay healthy for it to be good, period. Now, I think when you're a scheme 2 in Indianapolis, they only rush 4. I mean, they are dead last in blitz. They do not want to. Their whole MO is we're going to get after you with 4. We're going to play cover 3. We're going to limit explosives, stop the run, and defend the RPOs as best as we can. And then let's get off the field on third down. Like that's what the Seattle system was. And like it's changed fundamentally, but philosophically, it's the same thing. So improving the defensive line is definitely going to help. Juju, you don't have to cover as long, but like he's definitely going to need to have himself a healthy season, but B, I mean, just looking from who the Colts have invested in, you have to have a good season if this defense is going to be even in the top half of the league.
Yeah. That's what I was saying is like, if you can even just get average play, I'm not talking about great play. I'm not even talking about good play. I'm talking about 15th, 16th in the league. Like that's a big jump. And you know, that stuff matters. And it might not look like it on paper when you're like, oh man, they only had the 16th best DB room or, you know, in the league. But man, whenever you're going to 16 from 28, 29, that's a massive leap. And if they can just get average play out of that for a full season and have these guys healthy, and I think we haven't even talked about Dallas Flowers, who had some really, really good reps, you know, before he unfortunately got injured last year going into last season. You know, we didn't really get to see him at all, but I think people are kind of counting him off. And I know the Achilles injuries, like that's so tough as a DP, like that's such a tough injury. But if he can bounce back in any way, shape, or form, he's going to play a big role because I thought he was a really good player that just had an unfortunate injury.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also like Chris Ballard needs a hit at DB. I mean, if you go look at who he's drafted, and this is really ironic, and like I think
the guy that you know, Peanut Tillman and like
exactly like this guy was the DB cross check for years in Kansas
City.
Exactly. Like, and he comes to be a general manager, can't hit on a DB. And I'm sure like he probably laughs about it too. Like it's fine. But like Juju Brents needs to pan out. And like if he's not, I'm not sure that there's anyone right now unless they're really confident in Micah. Like there's just not a lot of investment in the group. Like there was obviously the rumors with Snead. I thought that made some sense just to be aggressive, add a veteran presence with Kenny Moore back there. Thought it made sense. That in retrospect, I think maybe Chris Ballard is seeing something we aren't. And when you're a GM and you basically double and triple down, I mean, he had the opportunity to draft any corner and chose not to. So there's clearly something that he's seeing in these that maybe we aren't. And although his track record would say we shouldn't give him as much benefit of the doubt, I'm going to choose to, just because I thought that there were glimpses from both of them where it's like, okay, let's get them on the field together. I mean, a lot of the explosive plays, and I did a film room on this too, like we just couldn't pass off route concepts, right? Like
just miscommunication, safety.
A lot of it was miscommunication. It was everyone's going to get beat. Every DB is going to – Snead's going to get beat in Tennessee. It's going to happen. It's the NFL. But we just missed too many, and I think the bet is that let's clean that up. Let's get everybody on the same field for once, and then hopefully those explosive plays come down. Maybe, and I'm not as stubborn as I think Gus Bradley has been throughout his career, I'm not sure that they won't – some of the stuff they were doing at Pitt up front in terms of pressure packages, like that was – lethal. Like it was Pat Narduzzi does a great job bringing 6, and that's what the Colts, if the Colts blitz, they're going to bring 6. They don't bring 5, they bring 6. So I think there's a chance for maybe this to be a more aggressive defense that helps those guys on the back end. So that's kind of what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic.
I love it. I
as
love
we
it. I
all
love
are.
the optimism. We all are, man. Justin, you are not alone, Coach Furrow. Like you could ask later. I'm pretty much screaming optimism and faith in his ear every week. He's like, I just don't see it. I'm like, you just gotta believe.
Yeah, because
But
I'm like I try to just be more like realistic about things, and it's just like, well, like it's just I need to see it first before I just blindly believe it. And
No,
then
I
Mike
agree with
on
you.
the other side, just we're like, no, man, you just gotta have the faith. You gotta.
Yeah, like, I love that part. I mean, and
yeah,
there's also like the important thing with all this too, and like I definitely want people on Twitter to understand this, is there's so much that we do not understand, like don't get to see, don't get to understand how the staff interacts, how the players are getting taught things, how
Nobody knows unless you're in the room.
exactly, like I can spend hours, and I've tried to spend hours dissecting every call. Here's what happened throughout the season. Here's what teams are trying to do to attack the Colts up front and in the back end. But until you're actually in the room, there's so much that you're missing out on. So you're always going to have a missing piece in your evaluation. So there's something there that Juju Brents and Jalen Jones are the answer now corner.
listen, we see you fighting week in and week out. We don't help you. We pray for you. We don't help you, but we see you. We see you every week. We're like, man, he's going at it. He's going. You
I,
just don't understand how this app works, but we see you.
you're right. I don't understand how Twitter works because, like,
You'll
I'm
get
trying to
versed
get,
in it real quick, bro.
I'm getting like given nuance to it. Just doesn't work.
Yeah, you'll learn. I had to go through that same thing. Once that follower count hits, like you said, I think you're there now. I think
Oh
usually
yeah,
about 2,500, and then it keeps creeping up, and you get into like 4,000 and stuff like that. It does. I mean, it doesn't matter. You could
doesn't
you
get
could
any
tweet
better
that
from
you
there.
like oranges, and people are going to be mad that you don't like apples. So you're it's a losing game.
Yeah, like I have all these like Fire Ballard Twitter accounts following me. I'm like, I might not be the account for you, man.
Yeah.
Like I might not be for you. Like,
Oh
Hey
man.
man, you might not be, but the real ones know where you're coming from, and we appreciate your efforts, man, out there. You're killing it right now. Keep up the good work. But yeah, Juju Brents is one of those guys I absolutely love, man. I just loved his grit and his passion, and you can kind of see like where he can be, with consistency on the field. Like he was battling against some good wide receivers when he was on the field. Like even his stint when his debut against Baltimore, I was like, oh, that's Juju right there. Like he's a dog. Like he has that mentality to be really good. He just got to stay on the field. That's all it is. Like anything else on the scratch off board, like he can on the check off list, you can pretty much mark it. Like I think with consistency, he could be that guy. Of course, that is a lot of faith to put and a lot of pressure to put on Juju very early. And you see they did not go get no veteran corners or anybody that was available in the draft. That's a lot of pressure, but I'm willing to go with him. I'm on the train of Juju Brents being the star corner, next to Kenny Moore. I think he has the potential. Of course, we just mentioned Dallas Flowers coming back as well. I think he has potential to be as well. Pairing them all together with continuity with this roster, with the healthy start, everyone being out there on the field at once. I think this is really, really good. And we just mentioned, bringing in Latu and the pressure that Quiddy Pay has. Having that pass rush or that edge rush in general, putting that pressure on a quarterback to make a bad throw could pretty much prosper Juju to taking that next level. And it gives him the confidence to go out there to make the next play with his athleticism and ability. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to do, man. With this edge rush has a lot to do with these DBs being successful moving forward. Because if there's no pressure, it's going to put these guys on the island and they're going to have to fight and claw, man. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do. Any players before we get up out of here? I know we've been rapping to you guys, but we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Like I said, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't followed us. Check us out on our website. The link is there, following on that little header there. All the articles from Landon and Coach Room is on there. If there's one more person that you guys wanted to mention, I know I just seen Nomadic Brian mention him too. We can definitely talk about him. Nick Cross. I know
that
you
was my
guys want.
last one. That was my last
Yes,
one. Yeah.
yes. Shout out to Nomadic Brian. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I had Nick Cross kind of circled here. I mean, when you trade up to go get a guy, there's different expectations when you walk into the room, and especially when you were a day two trade up, you weren't, or even a day one trade up. And I would tell you that Nick Cross probably frankly, hasn't had a lot of reps in the Gus Bradley system. He wasn't playing in the first half of the season. And I remember a lot of Colts fans, probably before I even started Colts Film Room, were like, put in Nick Cross. Like, why is Nick Cross our third round pick is like not on the bench? And then I think it was whether it was Rodney Thomas, or whatever, they made the change to go put him in. And it was so. Like, there wasn't, from the safety position, especially in this defense, there's opportunities to make plays, but there's also more opportunities to mess up the entire play. And I didn't see like an elite cover corner or an elite ball hawk, and then I didn't see an elite tackler. And I wouldn't even use the word elite, a susceptible tackler. So I think having some sort of identity, like, I think the time is now for Nick Cross. And I don't think it's been all bad. Like, the interception in Pittsburgh was definitely really good. There's some plays that he's definitely made from the center field spot that showed off a lot of he has the range. He certainly does. I think it's going to be getting more reps. I think it's going to be adjusting to being the center field player now that they moved Julian Blackmon into that strong safety spot, which worked out for him. But that kind of put Nick Cross in a position he's now got to be the center field guy for a lot of these snaps. So just getting better at passing off some of the routes. I think there was like a crosser to D-Hop late in the game in the first Tennessee matchup that just really wasn't passed off correctly. He should have cut the crosser, or that's what Jalen Jones wanted him to do. He didn't end up doing it. And there was a couple more like that for sure. But I think it kind of goes back to the Jalen Jones thing, like just being consistent and establishing an identity. Are you going to be a good tackler, or are you going to be the good center field thing, or it's going to struggle as the Colts potentially find these young guys that might come and push him out of a spot for playing time.
Yeah, because I'm curious too. Like, I mean, Jalen Simpson was drafted, and I think he does his best role is back there is that deep third safety and being able to read the defense and that kind of stuff. So I'm curious to see if any of these guys emerge. But I think Nick Cross now, I mean, you're going in. This is your third year in the Gus Bradley system. You should know really what's expected of you. And I've always been so curious because he doesn't really see the field that much. Is like, what's happening in practice? For him not to see the field, because there has to be something. And
it feels like there still is untapped potential there. And it's like, I feel like I would say this.
I mean, they traded up to get him.
Yeah. And I was like, I would say this about the entire back end of the defense. There just hasn't been a lot schematically or personnel-wise to hang your hat on. So, like, you might be playing with a different nickel as you might be playing with a different left cornerback or right cornerback, and you haven't had a chance to develop the chemistry. And I think more than anything, Chris Ballard's betting on health. That, like, let's get these guys together, get the reps together. And similarly to the offensive line from 2022 coming into 2023, maybe we'll see that kind of like, listen, they got the reps together, and look at now they're passing these stuff off. And that's kind of what I took from the comments and from what I had seen on film is like, there's as many mental errors as there were guys just not being good enough to be out there.
Yeah. And I think like that's just where like some of the disconnect is for me, because, he made that offensive line comment, in the presser. But to me, the big difference is obviously the offensive line. Those guys had performed at an elite level for multiple years before that, where the secondary is not.
And that's totally fair. And, I think there's a little bit of hubris, to be honest.
Yeah. And so now it's just more
Ballard's face. So
now it's more like I said, for me, I'm just more practical, where it's like, if I see you do it, I know you can do it. Now we just have to get it consistently. So like, I haven't seen it. So like,
I'm waiting for it to like really to have like a game where it's like, wow, you made you made like a crazy read in 3x1 to pick this ball off, and like kind of like what Kenny Moore had in like Carolina, like maybe not pick sixes, but like a game where it's like, wow, like I watched you on film,
dominated.
You flashed, you flashed consistently. I haven't seen that yet. Yeah. It's hard sometimes for a safety to come in and do that. I think it's terrible to write off safeties. Like Malik Hooker is quietly pretty solid.
Really good.
Out there, really good, if not pretty dang good out there in Dallas. So like, I think it's terrible to write off safeties really early on in their career.
And it was more of the same thing with him, where like it obviously wasn't ability; it was more just injuries.
I
And
cried that day.
he finally got healthy, and then you see him take off. So I think that's really, like you said, that's what they're betting on now is just health. And if you can get these guys right, and I mean, I get it; it's terrifying. I'm terrified because if you bet on health in the NFL, like it's just tough to do. Like because there's a 100% rate of injury. 100%. No,
and the other thing that I'm gonna just to put a bow on all this DB stuff, it's not too late either. We've seen.
Oh yeah, Kenny Moore got signed in August.
Exactly. Like there are guys that can just come out of nowhere in this DB now, and I don't think the Colts are done. I just think that like a lot of people are clamoring like, when's Justin Simmons coming? Like when's this guy? The one thing that you'll see is like in the NFL, and this goes for every team, every place. Deadlines spur actions, and right now there's really no deadline to sign a guy. Like, I mean, we're still installing the rookies. Like, there's just no reason to. Now, I do think when we get into maybe training camp will be a good opportunity.
You'll see a week or two into camp, and I think
June things can always happen in the NFL. So, like, that's why I'm saying there's no deadline right now.
Yeah, you get a week or two in the training camp, and you're not seeing it. You're not seeing the growth. You're not seeing anything. That's when I think you can start penciling in maybe a signing happening or something.
I think it's going to happen regardless by numbers. Like they just don't have a lot of.
They don't have enough. Yeah.
They don't have enough guys to really feel good about like who are you practice squatting at DB? Like who's going to be Juju Brents goes down tomorrow. Like who's your corner? Like who's your next guy to replace the next guy? Like there isn't. So like it's gonna. I feel. I don't ever want to use the word sure thing, but it's got to be like 80%. There's got to be an 80% chance.
Yeah, I agree. I think it happens. Maybe not even necessarily in the safety room, but I just think at cornerback, like you've got to do something. You got to do something.
I think I'm pretty scared if I'm rolling in with that exact secondary that I did in Houston. It just wasn't good enough. Now, again, I'm not there in practice. I'm not there to see everything. The Colts clearly have more conviction than I do, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I can roll in with that.
Yeah,
I personally don't have the courage to do that.
No, there's no chance. This is like Marcus is over there smiling because I've had this like exact same conversation with him multiple times where it's like word for word exactly what you're saying.
You guys are twins, I swear.
It's like, man, I don't know. I'm just a little scared.
I just believe, like it's okay. And
just believe this guy's gonna emerge. This guy's gonna
Nico Collins. I'm like, okay, Landon, maybe I wasn't right.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, but I gotta have the faith, right, Marcus?
Yes, absolutely. You have to. It's a clean slate. Everybody is 0-0. You have the chance right now to say something so outlandish that nobody can say
wrong. Is there a player that you've ever not thought was good?
That I never not thought was good?
Yeah. Is there any player that you've thought was bad?
I would say Deion Kane.
A 6th-round wide receiver.
I would say Deion Kane. That's pretty much it, though. But I mean, everybody else.
Did you watch years ago? Did you watch Mike McGlynn and Samson Satelli, and you were like, there's something there. They can improve.
No, I'm not that crazy.
Every week I watch them, I can't.
I'll just be completely quiet. Like I won't go out on this thing. Like if we're 4-12, it's like I can't say, oh, we're good, or like if we're 4-5, it's like okay, we have a chance. But once like the playoff berth is not even a chance to go there no more, that's when I lose faith. But if we have a chance to continue to make the playoff week in and week out, I'm gonna have faith until that berth is gone. That's my mentality. Like if we have a chance to do it like last year, we had a chance. We were one play away. I know you mentioned it earlier on Twitter. I know you do. I'm not going to. I'm just going to say we were one play away of making the playoffs.
Like they still got to drive the field.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I said. Because I've seen it so many times, and I haven't said anything. I've stayed quiet for months. Where it's like, the Colts were one 4th down conversion away from winning that game and making the playoffs. And it's
I
just
know it rubs
It's
Landon the
not like
wrong
they
way.
were kicking the field goal. I agree with you there. I agree with there. It was not like they were going to kick the field goal. They
Yeah.
were
no, you
driving.
have to score a touchdown, and then
They
at
were
that
driving,
point,
but they
you're
still
only
had
down
more.
by
They
1
had more
point,
yards.
or you're only up by 1, and you still have C.J. Stroud with time.
Who was? It wasn't even a chance.
Yeah, like I mean, like it's just like this whole thing, like where it's like, oh, if they convert that 4th down, they win the game, and I've seen it for months.
In my opinion,
drives me
the game
nuts.
was de facto over when CJ Stroud did that, like he juked DeForest Buckner out of his shoes and then found like 8.
Oh yeah.
That was wild.
For like 15. It was over.
Yeah, just sometimes it's just not your week. There's just
Yeah,
nothing.
exactly. Yeah, it just wasn't a star. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just nothing you could do. But I mean, yeah. So I made that tweet earlier where it's like, they were on the 15-yard
You get
line.
pushback?
Oh yeah.
Of course, it's
people
Landon.
hate
They hate Landon on social media.
Oh yeah, they do not like me.
Well, I said that like
I'm
JT,
way too honest for people. They do
Well,
not.
I said that like JT, like the difference between JT and Zach Moss is being overblown.
Oh, I saw.
I got killed. I provided good evidence too. Got killed.
Your
Yeah.
evidence means nothing. Like
Yeah.
facts mean nothing.
They're like, who does he think he is?
people
Just because he makes film, he knows everything.
Oh yeah, they're like, yeah. Everybody with the 2-8 jerseys got real mad.
Oh yeah, it's a losing battle, and I'm just like I said, I'm too honest sometimes about like what I see, like where like I saw that and finally it's like, okay, I've listened to this tape for like 4 months now, I can't do it. I can't do it. So even against my better judgment, that's what I tweeted out. And I was like, they were on the 15-yard line. If they convert, they still probably got to go about 10 yards. And then they're only up by 1 point with CJ Stroud marching down the field with time on the clock. So let's just pump the brakes, and
Yeah.
and people did not
So
like
funny,
that.
man.
Yeah, I got
Well, I'm probably not I'm not as biased in my analysis, I would say, but I do think that CJ Stroud saying he cooked the Colts twice was overblown.
Nah, I don't know about that.
I would say that. I was like 3. I think Zaire Franklin was on the money. 300 yards and you lost. If that's a cooking, then like,
yeah, bro, they were up by like 3 touchdowns and like they just started playing prevent.
It was over.
And,
like,
yeah, I mean,
you could.
if you want to dink and dunk and pad your stats, go ahead. But
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
not winning the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a little overblown. Plus, he was right too.
I had to get that off my chest because I wasn't going to tweet it out.
Yeah,
And like, I had to say it somewhere.
yeah.
Whatever
And,
you guys
and to
are
his
doing,
credit,
back
he
and
was
forth.
also correct. He never beat Anthony Richardson. When Anthony Richardson was on the field, the Colts were cooking Houston pretty good.
Yeah, 1-0.
I mean, let's just wait till we got our guy back before you get in the whole cook part. But yeah, you'll learn very quickly if you haven't already. The social media game, it's a different world, man. It's not reality. Don't take it to heart. I have a hard time sometimes with my mouth about like clapping back at trolls sometimes because I know they're trolling, and so it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna like I'm gonna troll back a little bit.
Yeah. I just accepted that like some people just are not for me. Like if you're interested in learning more about football, I can help you out. If you're interested in trolling, I'm probably not gonna.
Yeah,
If you have Fire Ballard in your bio, you might as well just unfollow me.
Or
That's like 70%.
Or the other way around, like JT is the greatest gift to football. Like
yeah,
you could probably unfollow me too, because like I'll just tell how it is. Like
yeah, I've been told countless times that I hate Anthony Richardson too much and I love Anthony Richardson too much, and I'm too hard on Chris Ballard, but I'm a Ballard apologist.
I've gotten Ballard apology.
Yeah, I'm a Ballard apologist. But when I say something negative, on the other side of the coin, just trying to be honest, like I said, I'm a little too honest, then it's just like, well, you just hate the Colts. You're just the worst follow on Twitter. And it's like,
I'm so glad the Colts did not end up with Brock Bowers. I would have had to delete the account. Like there was people were way too sensitive about Brian Thomas Jr. and Brock Bowers. And
I agree. Yeah.
Whatever. I'm glad I
actually liked Brock. I mean, obviously he's a great player. I just thought there was what the Colts, the way the roster is constructed, they were just better. Like you just needed something different. You don't need a tight
It
end.
wasn't even that. I tweeted out, I was like, well, there's going to be 6 tight ends on the roster. Like someone's got to be the odd man out. And they're just like, stupid take, like go into training camp. I'm like, that's not really how it works because like if you don't have a running back that can block gap scheme, like and Brock Bowers really, that's not his calling card. Like you can't just go into camp. Like, and then people are like, cut Mo Alley, guys, whatever.
Yeah. That's my reaction a lot of times where it's just like, yeah, it's whatever. Okay.
Like you guys,
there's nothing I can do here.
I have your noties on for both of you. So whenever you guys are going back and forth, just know Culture Shock is watching. And then there's this brief step where Landon's going back and forth and then he just disappears. I'll text him like, Landon, you okay, buddy? Yeah. He's like, no, these stupid Colts fans. I just had to get off social media. They'll get on my nerves. I was like, oh, yeah, that's fair. Just check.
Hey, to be fair, I think more often than not,
this is becoming a therapy session. That's true.
Yes.
I'm not going to tweet it out. Like I try and maintain some professionalism.
But see, this is
I'll say it, hopefully no one's probably listening at 1 hour and 16 minutes in. So
no.
Well, that's
but
clearly
you're but see, like you're going through the beginning stages of it. So like this is something like I was born in the darkness, like you're finally getting there. And so like I feel like this is like all the stuff you're saying is just
I just gotta stop replying to them.
Yeah, you're me from like 2 years ago. Where we're like you're starting to see this stuff and you're like, really? Like that's what people are like? And then here I am is like the old weathered man now where it's just like it gets worse. Like it doesn't get better.
Crazy. Like I joined social media when there was really nothing. Like things have been pretty quiet in the Shane Steichen era. Like imagine when it was when Jeff Saturday. I wasn't there when Jeff Saturday was.
Oh, you missed it.
I was.
I'm glad. I don't think I could have. I'm actually glad I didn't. Like none of the film would have been like it would have been embarrassing. Like
you know the worst thing I had to do.
It would have been hard to watch. Like
to this day, and I actually texted my buddy. So like I've had like the same group of friends for like decades now, and I think that was the first year I was actually on the Blue Stable. Was that year? But before that, you know, I was just breaking down film. I just did it on my own just because I loved it.
Yeah.
And so I had to get on here, and I had to break down the Colts and Broncos film from that Thursday night football game.
That was
dude,
so hard.
You want to talk about the most miserable I've ever been watching? I questioned my existence. Like I was texting him.
Not even like the defense was.
I watched the all 22 of that game 3 times, and I was sitting here watching it. And I texted my friend group, and I'm like, I can't do this, dude. Like I can't. I'm going.
It was one of those things where like the defense like wasn't even fun to watch. The offense was just so bad.
Yeah, it just wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't even like things were good. It was just
like it all
both sides of it. Like I would just be watching something, and I'm just like a piece of my soul died that day. And so yeah, I've went through. You know, me and Marcus, we've weathered the storm. We went through Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger, and you know, Landon, what's your thoughts on Sam Ehlinger taking over this offense? And well, Landon, now he's benched. What do you think about Nick Foles? How can Nick Foles elevate this offense?
The Charger game? Oh my
God. Former Super Bowl champion. Try to make it sound good. It just wasn't good at all.
There's no spin on that season.
Were you opted? Marcus was probably like, no, like give him time. Like
like before the game starts, like on the previews, I would have all the inspiration that give you to try to convince you.
And by the end of the show, I broke him down by the end of the show to where even he couldn't.
Yeah, where it's like they're in Denver. It's like, listen, they call it Mile High for a reason. We'll get him next week. Like it was the elevation.
Yeah. They got there on the plane late. Next week's gonna be better, and I'm just sitting there and I'm just no, it's not.
Like we just beat the Broncos. He's like, did you just watch that game? I was like, yeah, but the final score says otherwise.
I think the best part you missed, actually, it's a blessing in disguise that you missed being a part, of the Colts media, big on Twitter, that kind of stuff, was during the hiring process, like the Jeff Saturday interviews, and Jeff Saturday is going to be the next head coach. Oh my God. I mean, I had people because I would tweet out once a week Jeff Saturday is not going to be the next head coach of this football team. And I had people in my mentions, I mean, just like murdering me, like just being like,
They thought Saturday was
yes. And like they thought it was a good idea. Like, look at what he did against Oakland. Look at, this team has really come.
Jeff Saturday
The
admitted
offensive line improved. These guys are coming together as a team now and they're fighting and they gave up under Frank. And I think we just need to give him a chance. And there's a lot more to that.
Honestly, credit to you guys. I would have deleted the account. Like I actually would have. I would have been like, "This is not for me."
It's
Like
a struggle. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
They were bringing up his tweet about the Raiders after we won that game. See, he even called them trash. He went in and took care of business. It was a terrible time to be a fan.
I was still in the league at that point, so I was watching from the press box of one of the other games, and I remember kind of peeking. I'm like, oh, it's Saturday it's just Saturday. What's going on? I didn't get to watch the full game. I watched the film of it. It wasn't as great as everyone was making it out to be, but hey, good for Jeff Saturday.
Yeah. You beat Josh McDaniels.
Good for you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see how this goes. And just slowly every week it just unraveled. And I think finally I had Marcus by about the last couple minutes of the Minnesota game. I think I finally had Marcus where he was just like, okay.
Like, what just happened? Like, the tackling was so bad. How did they just let him run into the end zone?
Oh, the Minnesota. That one I actually did get to watch. Yeah, that game was tough.
It was a disaster. And you had Colts fans coming at me because I was like, well, the Jeff Saturday thing, just in reality, it pissed a lot of people off around the league. That's just the facts of it. It just did. And, they're like, once Steichen was hired, it was just like, see, you were wrong all along. You didn't, they were going to be, it's like, yeah, okay.
And now we're, well, it's actually crazy because we've had so many suspensions and other things, but it's quiet. It's quiet. We've had overall very quiet offseason. Probably
this has been great. This has been great. I needed a break. A break.
Yeah, everybody stay out of trouble so we can get a full season.
Yeah, and you still have some of which you'll find out when the season starts and you start tweeting good things about Anthony Richardson. You still got quite a few accounts on there that
still try the fire. Well, if you have Fire Ballard, you have to spin it some way.
No matter Anthony Richardson could literally deliver a baby and save a cat from a burning tree and throw for 1,500 yards and 6 touchdowns in a game, and they'll get on there and they'll be, yeah, but he completed 63% of his passes. He's trash.
Well, they find some advanced metrics.
Oh yeah, there's nothing you can do.
The PFF guys are out there. Just be careful.
And then on the flip side, you'll have where Anthony Richardson makes.
Well, I got into it with Dan Dockich last week. That's me and Mina Kimes versus Dan Dockich.
That's a rite of that's a rite of passage you go through.
Yeah,
the Indy video. If you haven't been blocked or quote tweeted by Dan Dockich, then it's just a rite of passage for all of us, dude. You go through it. The worst thing was I had a tweet. It was I can't remember what it was. It wasn't something good. It was where I was actually kind of being semi-critical of the team and some of their approach to. It might have been last year, the year before, their approach to the offseason, something they were doing. And it wasn't rooted in hate. It was just more of just trying to be honest. And Dan Dockich quote tweeted it and agreed with it, and then somebody sent it to me, and I'm like, oh shit!
Now I just got looped.
No.
Yo, Marcus, put that for social. That's hilarious. Let's tweet it at Dan Dockich.
Yeah, no, please don't agree with me. This is because it made me question on do I actually know anything? Am I actually an idiot? So yeah,
those Fire Barrel truthers was see, I knew it.
Yeah, I told you.
Fine. There's always. I'm sure there's fire everyone people, but
oh yeah, like I said, there's no way around. That's just social media. You you criticize, you get called out. You don't criticize enough, you get called out. I mean, it's just it's part of it. The best thing you can do is just just realize that
I'm putting out the content no matter what. It's
just realize that it's a very small niche of the world, and it has no impact on the real world. It doesn't matter, what CW341723 thinks you're an idiot or not. It just, I got called today, it was actually on that tweet I was telling you about where I said something about the fourth down play.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Somebody cursed me out pretty good in my comments. They told me I was a dumb F, I'm not gonna say that. Yeah. And so like you'll see stuff like that. It's just, there's no winning.
It's crazy because it's a literal fact. Like, I don't know how you're getting mad over a fact.
It just is what it is. But yeah, it's been good. There's much more, and it sounds like we're like bitching about it, and like really I'm not. There are so many good people that you come into contact with doing this. Obviously, I've seen you on there with like Jake and Zach, and then Andrew and Drake. They're both fantastic. I got a chance to sit with Andrew at the draft when we were at the draft.
Shout out to my guy.
That's been fantastic. Training camp, if you ever go to training camps or do anything, man, you'll meet so many good people in this industry, and so many good people, just fans on Twitter that like are genuinely interested in the film and what you have to say, and like they really appreciate it and stuff. And I think that's why you've been able to take off the way you have, is because people really appreciate just these honest, nuanced takes where it's like there's no like right or wrong. The film is the film, and like that's that's the end of it, and you can interpret it any way you want, but at the end of the day, that's what's there. And like that's kind of like how I base my stuff off of, where I'm not quite as I mean, it just is what it is, the film.
I mean, it's not personal.
No,
it's like it's been good because like there actually are people, and I don't think there's enough of people that like actually take the time to not.
They appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, and then like there's not enough people probably in the NFL in general that like probably understand that like I don't care if 4 people look at it or 80 people look at it, but I'm going to give you the accurate, because the fans, I feel like fans deserve a higher standard of NFL content, which is this podcast for sure, where it's like I can sit here and just talk about the most clickbaity thing ever, and then like or like quote tweeted Anthony Richardson practice video and be like, he is next up, but that's not like like you see him like throwing out.
I've been guilty of that sometimes.
No, that's fine. That's what it's.
I've been guilty of. I think I had a tweet, which it wasn't like he was like next up or like he's him or whatever. Like, it was whatever they, that one a few weeks ago where he was throwing the ball and it was in slow motion. And I quote tweeted, and I was like, man, that thing's humming. Like, I know it's in slow motion.
That's fine. There's people that there's literally people that'll like, and it bothers me because it's like they always have FF at the end of their name. No offense.
Oh, God,
like they're always like, are we sleeping? Anthony Richardson is on the route for a top 5 season, and he threw like a cool pass in practice with no like. And it's awesome. It's cool. He has a big arm. I've learned that already. Like,
you'll come across like. I know it's like a funny thing right now, but like the whole like fantasy football in bio. Where like you'll see just like the most god awful take, and then you look and it says like fantasy football. You're just like,
people want their take to be heard. So like that's where they're like be contrarian or like do stuff. Yeah, listen. We've done 30 minutes of just straight therapy. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is great. This is great. All about, man, just talking, and Marcus is just quiet, and this is what it's all about. Because I like me personally, I've had a rough week, so like. I needed it. That's what I texted him earlier. He was like, man, like, if you're not feeling up to it, you don't have to get on the show. And like I texted him, I was like, no, it's probably good for me if I do. Like, it's probably good. So like you'll get through the I can't remember what I was gonna say, honestly. But no, I agree. It's been good. We try to do good work here, and I would be doing the same thing if I had 15,000 followers or 4,000 or 4. It doesn't matter. I'm the same person. Like, I'm authentically me, whether you like it or not. And
Yeah.
and I agree. I think fans do deserve a higher quality of content that's not clickbaity. That's, we're not pushing out, every time some little thing happens, we're not pushing out like 7, 8 videos of, look at the handoff from Jonathan Taylor to Anthony Richardson or anything like that. We try to, the off season's slow. Like, it's slow right now. There's not a lot to talk about. So like, we get on here and we have these kind of discussions, and it's fun and it's lighthearted. And,
Well, I put a tweet out too. It's like, instead of quote tweeting practice videos, what if like we spent the off season like learning more about the game, and then we have better football takes?
Yeah.
Like,
which I think your pinned tweet I saw, where you have like some of the different resources.
Oh yeah.
That of everything, I thought
all online, like you can be Colts film. You can be better than I am. Like, I just got lucky. Like, just the way that some of the people that I've met just through being in the NFL to like bounce stupid questions off of. But like, the online is really, like, there are coaches that put out really good content.
Oh yeah.
People that like, you can, if you really have a passion to learn, but then there's some people that just don't care.
Yeah, they're
not the account for me anyway. So
yeah, there are great books. I mean, there's tons of books, man. I've got a
Landon showed me a few.
Yeah, I've got. Well, whenever we were at the Senior Bowl last year, I brought like 6 or 7 books that I was reading, and it was all about like offensive structures and defensive schemes.
Oh yeah,
and just little things like that, where like you get into like different play, all that kind of stuff, and and that's just me. Like, that's just what I like. Even if I wasn't on the show, or this is what I was doing with my buddies, just sitting on the couch for 10, 15 years now. Like, this is just what I do. That's what I like to do in my free time. My wife hates it. She comes in just about like every other day, and she's just like, I thought the season was over. I hear that constantly. Football season was over.
Yep.
It's like, well, I mean,
Yeah, like, I have texts waiting for me. They're like, how long can the podcast really go?
Yeah, see, Luke. Yeah, I had like 6 or 7 books I was studying at the time, just basically off like offensive and defensive scheme structures. Yeah. And they were just like, what are those? I was like, like we were, I think me and Rashad, we stayed up till like midnight just throwing on like quarterback film and just going through film session.
Yeah, they did. I was like, okay, I'll see you guys in the morning.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, we're going to bed. And me and Rashad, or King of Colts, his ad. Me and Rashad stayed up just watching quarterback film for hours.
Yeah, I gotta do that on here. I gotta be better about breaking.
Landon's your guy. Hey, you got floor is yours.
Yeah,
man.
I mean,
if you guys want to do that, go ahead.
Yeah, if you ever want to,
we should do that.
If you go back and look at some of the stuff we did with Jack during the draft last year, we had me and Jack Guiley. We broke down a bunch of prospects, and we had a bunch of all 22 film that we pulled up, and we would talk about different schemes and stuff like that. And people really seemed to like it. I just had a lot going on this year. I couldn't really do much draft related stuff like I used to, but yeah. Yeah, I get that. I get that a lot, where I'll come in, it's like, well, we got a show tonight, or hey, I'm gonna go watch this film, and she's like, I thought it was over. She literally said that to me earlier in the truck. We were driving in the truck, and I was like, well, I got the show tonight, 6:30. She's like, I thought football season was over.
No,
it's never over.
That was her welcome to the NFL moment.
Yeah, I was like, we're just getting started. Yeah. This is the beginning.
Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet, honey.
Yeah, she's seen it all. She's seen it all. There's, unfortunately for her, I feel so sorry for her. I don't know how I ever convinced her to marry me, but I got lucky in that department, because she doesn't complain about it. She'll sit right beside me in here. I don't know if you can see, I've got like 3 TVs set up in here, and I'll have 3 different games. Yeah, I'll have 3 different games on, and I'll have my laptop pulled up, and she'll sit in here playing the Switch right next to me, and I'll get up here in front of this big one, this huge one here. It's like a 75-inch monitor, I'll be like, watch this. I'll be like, watch this safety come down and read this crack right here and play off of it and stuff. And she just looks at me and she's just like, I don't understand anything you're talking about. And I was like, I just need somebody to talk to, like something cool happens and I'm like, look at how cool this was. And she's like, yeah, that's great, sweetie. You're doing a great job. It's like, okay.
He's like, you didn't see that bait right there? There's no fish on the field, honey. It's like, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. She's wonderful. She supports it. She supports it all. And
love it, man. Love it.
So
we appreciate you guys for tuning in tonight. This was a great show. But you guys don't forget to comment your thoughts on 4 players that you think could be very important that could take a next step in next season for the Indianapolis Colts to hit that next stride. We appreciate you guys. Like I said, tune in for the articles and the website on bluestable.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube and on all the other platforms if you haven't already. The links are in the description. But we appreciate you guys. We will be back, but you have to turn on your notice to know when we're dropping our next content. But once again, this Colts Film Room, we appreciate you for joining us for the first time ever. Hopefully this wasn't your last time. Shout out to Landon for joining us again.
Whenever you'll have me.
Yeah. Whenever you want to come.
Don't tempt me because you'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, don't tell Marcus that. You'll never hear the end of it.
That's fine. I'm always down.
Y'all heard it here first, dude. But we appreciate you guys. Shout out to Landon once again, man. Appreciate you for joining me as always. But this is Coach Shock as well. This is Blue Stable. Appreciate you guys, and we are out.